All right, guys. So today we are going to discuss a very important moment in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Okay, so we will see the impact of Hamas leaders' death on Israel-Palestine conflict, and so you might have heard about the recent death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, and we will look at the broader geopolitical implications of that. Okay, so this event actually stirred a significant global attention and has raised questions about the potential shift in the Middle East power dynamics. And in this session, we'll try to deep dive into that and we'll try to explore how the elimination of one of Hamas' top leader might impact the conflict, okay, and its regional alliances and the global politics. So let's get started and we will try to understand who was Yahya Sinwar first, and then we will proceed further. So Yahya Sinwar was a prominent figure within Hamas, and he's known for his extreme hardline stances and his role in shaping the group military operations. Okay, so Sinwar, along with leaders like Ismail Haniya, was responsible for Hamas' strategic military direction, and he rose to prominence after spending over 2 decades in Israeli prison and was released in a prisoner exchange in 2011. Okay, so he was there in the Israeli prison for almost 2 decades. And Sinwar was known for his uncompromising approach towards Israel and was central in orchestrating the rocket attacks. And his death represents a significant blow to Hamas leadership structure. But still, now, what is going to be the future? The immediate aftermath of Sinwar's death. Okay, so after his death, the following Sinwar's death, we have already seen a surge in tensions, and Hamas quickly retaliated by firing rockets into Israel, resulting in civilian casualties. However, his death goes beyond just immediate reactions. So that's why we need to discuss this actually, right? It potentially, destabilized the Hamas internally, and his leadership was very crucial in maintaining the group's strategy. So this could lead to an internal power struggle or even more radical factions possibly can rise to prominence within Hamas. And Israel, on the other hand, if you see, views this as a tactical victory, and they know that possible retaliation is there, and it's almost certain. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So Israel response and the strategic intention. So if you see from Israel perspective, Sinwar's death is a significant achievement, and they aim to weaken Hamas and reduce the gap of the group's operational capacity also. So once Yahya Sinwar is dead, now Hamas has actually got weakened, and on the other side, you see they eliminated the Hezbollah leader also. So for Israel, there's a tactical victory. So if you see Israel's long-term strategy, is dismantling of Hamas control over Gaza. So they have identified 8 people, and they have made a public statement that they are going to eliminate those 8 people, out of which 5 is already done. Now 3 are left, but that's not those serious people like Yahya Sinwar and all. Okay, so this move was seen as part of a broader campaign to neutralize Hamas leaders, following similar operations against the key figures like Ismail Haniya and Muhammad Deif. Okay, so and even after that, or if you look at this, a lot of risk is there. So Israel now is expecting that kind of retaliation. Okay, so eliminating key figures can clearly fuel anger among Palestinians, and potentially it can lead to new waves of violence and kind of extremist activities in retaliation to this. Okay, so now we also need to discuss the role of Iran when we discuss anything connected to Israel-Palestine. So Iran's influence in the regional geopolitics we need to discuss. And to understand the full implications in this event, we must also look into the role of Iran. Not only here, we will also see the role of Iran when it comes to Hezbollah also and Houthis also. Everywhere we need to discuss. But here, let's focus on this in this context. Okay, so Iran has long supported Hamas, Hezbollah, and other proxy group also as part of its strategy to exert influence in the Middle East and as a strategy to control Israel. So we discussed it already. Iran like a octopus and leading a kind of war using the proxies. Okay, so a kind of proxy war is what they are looking at. And with the death now, after the death of Sinwar, what will happen? Iran may increase its support for Hamas, supplying them with weapons and financial aid to ensure that Hamas continues its resistance against Israel. So Iran never want Hamas to be weakened because Hamas is a proxy of Iran. So if Iran, if Hamas is getting weakened, and Iran don't want that situation to come. So there is a possible good support which Hamas can get from Iran, not only in terms of financial aid, but also in terms of weapons and other things. So Iran's involvement will complicate this conflict, and it brings a kind of regional rivalry. Okay, and it also can spread to countries like Saudi Arabia, and the broader Sunni-Shia divide also can come into this also. Okay, so that way again, this is going to be very significant. And if you look at next slide, we are going to discuss about the international reaction, the US and the global reaction. So the international community, especially US, has closely followed the events unfolding in Gaza, and President Joe Biden supported Israel's actions and comparing this mission to the US operation that neutralized Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. So this basically reflects the global stance on counterterrorism. However, Europe has expressed concern about the humanitarian consequences, fearing that this escalation could lead to a greater instability in the region, and countries like Turkey, Qatar, which have historically supported Hamas, might react differently and again can complicate the diplomatic efforts. So that's what, if you see the global side, the US obviously support Israel. Again, now the Hamas leadership after Sinwar, there's a bigger question that we need to answer. So the death of Sinwar poses significant question for Hamas leadership structure. Okay, so I told you already, internal conflicts also can occur. Historically, any organization, if you see any leaderless organization like Hamas have adapted to such losses, but the absence of figure like Sinwar could either weaken the group or prompt internal shift, and internal issues can also rise. Okay, so some analysts believe that the next leader could be even more radical, and it can further intensify the conflict. And on the other hand, Hamas might find it difficult to fill Sinwar's shoes. Of course, that expertise and that kind of aggressiveness, and it can lead to potential cracks in the group's unity, and the group itself can crack down. That's why I told you Iran potentially can support, Hamas at this stage, not only in terms of weapon, but also financially as well. So how will this affect the Israel-Palestine conflict now? Okay, so we can discuss short term and the root causes, cycle of violence, and everything. So the big question remain: how will this impact the broader Israel-Palestine conflict? So while Sinwar's death is a short-term victory for Israel, though they consider it as a tactical victory, but it doesn't address the root cause of the conflict, such as the territorial disputes, political sovereignty, and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. So all these remain as wider issues, and the death of one leader is unlikely to end the violence. See, if something is based on it's not only created by that person, right? Then his death could have ended everything. But that's not the case. It's a long-standing territorial dispute. A long-standing political sovereignty is a question. Humanitarian crisis in Gaza, around 43,000 people have been killed in the llast 1 year. So all these are bigger questions. So again, it can come back. It can revamp. So one leader's death may not, end the violence. Okay, in fact, it can, fuel more violence also if a new leader is coming who's more aggressive than Yahya Sinwar. So in fact, it could prolong a cycle of retaliation as well because of this. And if you see, without sustainable peace process, both sides remain locked in this violent struggle with no clear resolution in sight, and it keep on going. If this is the case, if there is no proper peace process, with the support of various international organization, and there are many attempts which has been done, but Israel will never compromise. No one want to do that. Okay, so if that is not happening, this will keep on continuing. And again, guys, if something which is based on an ideology, it will never end. Just because one leader died doesn't matter, it will stop. For that leader, another leader will come. The ideology, the question remain the same, the territorial dispute remain the same. Okay, so the broader geopolitical implications of this, if you look at, yeah. So the next slide is geopolitical implications. And if you see, the death of Sinwar and the ongoing conflict in Gaza are part of this larger geopolitical puzzle in the Middle East. So though Israel considers it as a victory, though Israel was able to eliminate 5 out of their 8 target, but still, countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran all have vested interest in the region, with each supporting different factions for their own strategic goals. And Palestine is still fighting for that territorial aspect and the political sovereignty, so it will continue. And this event could lead to shift in alliances or even more direct involvement from these regional powers. Just before I've mentioned about Iran potentially can directly involve, initially they will again try to support more with the proxies, right? But then again, our direct involvement is also possible. So we have seen the signs of that just before that Iran sent a lot of missiles to Israel, and we discussed already about that. So we may see more polarized Middle East now, with Iran doubling down on its support to Hamas and other countries taking sides in this long-standing conflict. So that's a possibility. More polarization is possible. Now, how can we conclude this? Okay, so what we can conclude in conclusion, what we can say, the death of Yahya Sinwar is a significant moment, yes, in this Israel-Palestine conflict, long-standing conflict, but it's unlikely to bring the peace, and it's not likely to end the violence. It's not likely to end the actual conflict. Something which is based on an ideology, it will continue even if that leader is dead, right? It's not all about the leader. It's about a territorial dispute. It's about a political sovereignty. It's about a humanitarian crisis. So it will be prolonged and it will be continued. And the conflict's complexities run deep, from historical grievances to regional, geopolitics and everything. So it's very difficult, and the involvement of other powers like Iran on one side, US on the other side, Russia again maybe on one side, and China on the one side, so UK on the other side, and Turkey. Okay, this is now more than just a bilateral struggle between Israel and Hamas. It's a regional issue with global ramifications. It can even potentially lead to a third world war also. And the question remains, right? Will this event lead to a new phase of conflict, or it could create an opportunity for dialogue and an eventual peace? Chances of the second option is very less. Okay, it will continue. It's a non-ending process at this point of time, at least. So we will wait and see. That's what my opinion all about. And in case if you have anything to discuss, you can comment below. And see you guys in the next session. Thank you so much.